Hello, everybody. Thank you for coming today. My name is Joshua Murray. I am the Director of Marketing here at Nonotuck, and I'm also the co-chair of our Diversity, Equity, Inclusion, and Belonging Committee. I want to say thanks and welcome. I know this is not the best day in terms of being in close proximity to a holiday, so I appreciate everyone showing. Um, Today we're going to hear from Rhonda Toby, who is a clinician in our Plymouth office who's worked with us for over 10 years. She's going to explore historical trauma among Native Americans, the lasting effects of colonization, forced relocation, and cultural genocide on indigenous communities. She's going to define the term historical drama and explore its roots in events such as the Trail of Tears residential school system and assimilation policies that aim to erase Native cultures. It's really been a pleasure to work alongside Rhonda on the DEI and B committee. So I'm excited for this presentation. I think you guys are going to be in for a real treat today. And without further ado, I am going to yield the floor and let Rhonda go. So thank you, Rhonda.
You're welcome. So I am Sharon. Yeah, it's just a little great introduction. Thank you so much. So we're just talking about, I don't want to repeat. My traditional name is Afuche Iyasike. It means happy spirit. So I'm just going to jump right into a little icebreaker, and it is saying, "Are you smarter than a third grader?" So in the poll is this person a native? And it's really a yes or no. Do we have that poll? If not, we can just put it in the chat.
It should be live, and if people are having trouble with it, they can add it to chat too.
Okay. All right, we're just going to jump into the definition of historical trauma. So, historical trauma is a collective emotional and psychological injury, both over the lifespan and across generational, resulting from a shadow history of genocide. And what does that mean? Genes can carry memories of trauma experienced by our ancestors and can influence how we react to trauma and stress. American Indians live in a flight, fight, freeze due to the trauma experienced by the early generation, reported by the Academy of Pediatrics. Historical trauma has been linked to PTSD, suicide, mental health, addiction, sexual violence, type 2 diabetes, so many more, which are all examples of historical trauma response. There are 6 phases of historical trauma. The first phase is a first contact. It's about the life shock, the genocide, no time for grief. This is a part of the introduction of diseases and alcohol. The phase 2 is an economic competition, which is dealing with the land laws. In phase 3 is the invasion or war period. Phase 4 is a defeat reservation period, being forced to be dependent on the oppressor. Phase 5 is the boarding school, which is the banning of the native language, destroying the family system. And what happening from that is the ill prepared for parenting and identity confusion. Phase 6 is a forced relocation and termination period, which I would call the second removal act. And now we have a video. Okay.
A long time ago, before you were born, the old people told a story about a visit from the wisdom keepers. The wisdom keepers told us the lightskins are coming, and their numbers would be great. They will bring great destruction and confusion. That we will go through a time of testing. They will bring 4 mind changers to make us forget our ways. The mind changers would be a liquid, a black book, a song, and a card. They will take your land. They will poison the earth. They will bring disease and sickness. They will kill the women and the children. They will destroy our culture. Only our spirituality will be left. After the testing time, a great healing will take place. The eagles will come back. The buffalo will come back. We will come back. The prophecies will come true. We are now in a time of the fulfillment of prophecy. The story that happened has never been told. Now is the time to tell the story.
Genocide tactics, as defined by the United Nations. Number 1. Killing members of the group. An example of that would be the Wounded Knee Massacre. Number 2. Causing serious bodily or mental harm to members of the group. A good example of that would be the 1862 mass hanging. Number 3. Deliberately inflicting on the group conditions of life calculated to bring about its physical destruction, in whole or in part. A good example of that would be the longest walk made by the Navajo Nation or the Cherokee Trail of Tears. Number 3. Imposing measures intended to prevent births within the group. The United States government sponsored sterilization of Native American women. Number 4. Forcibly transferring children of the group to another group. In 1879, in Carlisle, Pennsylvania, the first of 500 boarding schools.
We can pause it there.
Do you want me to stop sharing?
Yes. And I think it's time for me to share again. So as you can see, and really the I think somebody needs to be on mute. So this is not about what happened during this time period. It just really shows about trauma, war, and what was just a lot of stuff that was going on. In 1580, it was the first settlement of the English settlement, which was in a Roanoke island of North Carolina. There's a outdoor drama called The Lost Colony, which has history based on my tribe, the Lummi tribe. So it's a very interesting. If you ever go to the Outer Banks, go check that out. In 1615, we had the Wampanoag suffering their epidemic, which is right here in Massachusetts. And in 1625, the Dutchess bought Manhattan for $24. We had the marriage of a young teenager, Pocahontas, married to John Ralph. They went to England. We always call that a beginning of the human trafficking. And so 3 years later, Pocahontas dies in England. In 1636, there was a Pequot War. It was against the law to even say Pequot. In 1639, we have Captain Pierce of Salem exchanging native slaves for black slaves. We know that native slaves was original slaves in United States, but we was the worst. We got sick very. It didn't take much. We was very sick. We died, and we also run away. So. Was not beneficial. The King Philip War, 1675. And King Philip, if you can think about it, I always want people to think about all these issues. Put yourself in, we would say, our moccasins. Look, think of King Philip at the end of his war. He was watching his wife and his son being put on a boat, getting shipped to Bermuda. Even today, the Bermudas, a lot of people don't know that in Bermuda, they have a powwow. There is a blood link of the Pequot tribes and the the Wampanoag tribe in Bermuda. They're there. If you ever go there, they even look like I tell my husband that they're so similar. They look just like each other. So it's very interesting to see that taking place. So it's not about today, not about all these days. It's all about knowing that shock and trauma did not end because the war ended. You know, again, we have the early period of America. We have the Revolution War. A man from our tribe, we have documented that he fought in that war. You know, in March 1790, everybody was counted in the census but the Indians. This part of the 1810, I think, is very important. It's a Cherokee abolishing the clan revenge, the AKA blood law. And what that truly meant was a blood law, meaning an eye for eye, a tooth for a tooth. We did not see domestic violence as we see today's time because of this blood law. So they stopped the blood law to show the United States government, because the government did not like this law, but showing the United States government they can change their traditions to throw away those traditional way and understanding the United States government's laws. And then we have the video 2, which I'm gonna stop sharing. Yeah, that was the video. Oh, you got to show on the, you're muted, Josh.
Yep.
You're muted. Okay.
The promises of the United States government were that if the Cherokees, the Creeks, the Choctaws, the Seminoles, the Chickasaws could somehow assimilate ways of living that were more like their white neighbors, that they could be the political and social equal of their white neighbors. Literally, Thomas Jefferson once assured the Indian leaders in a speech that he believed they could become the equal of white people.
You will unite yourselves with us, President Jefferson said. Join our great councils and form one people with us, and we shall all be Americans. But the end of the 1820s saw the first stirring of a populist political movement that sent tremors through Indian lands all over the East. This hard-edged new movement found voice in Andrew Jackson. In his first address to Congress, President Jackson announced his intention to do as his voters pleased, which is to say, rid the East of the Indian tribes once and for all.
The Indian removal bill was Jackson's first priority once he was in office. It did reflect a fundamental shift in the way that America was beginning to define itself.
The thinking of the day becomes more racist, that the Cherokees are inferior and cannot be like the whites.
The legislation passed, and President Andrew Jackson's signature made Indian removal the law of the land.
The people are told they have 2 years to remove themselves peacefully with support from the federal government, supplying and make sure that they get their payments. And only a handful of people leave. They continue planting their fields and making improvements on their farms. That was their land. They weren't going to leave.
For the vast majority of the Cherokee people, removal was not an option. It just was not. They couldn't comprehend removal. They couldn't comprehend that a handful of people signing a piece of paper would be enough to remove them from their homelands.
On the morning of May 26, 1838, 3 days after the removal deadline, federal troops and state militia began what they called the Assembly of the Cherokee People.
Everything that wasn't actually on the person now belonged to the state. And they were forced out into yards and on to the roads with whatever they had on their back.
It was early December before the final group began the 850-mile trip. By then, the long line of Cherokee travelers stretched from Illinois into Kentucky, unbroken in places for 3 miles.
No one could have predicted that one of the hardest winters in memory would strike that year.
A New Englander passing through western Kentucky noted the sad procession. 2,000 people, sick and feeble, many near death. One woman was carrying her youngest child who was dying in her arms. The Indians buried 14 or 15 at every stopping place.
The United States gained a lot of land, but a loss for the American government is the blemish, the stain it places upon our national honor. What we did in the 1830s to the southeastern Indians, it's ethnic cleansing.
Rhonda, you muted.
I know people wants to know if they all went out west, why are there natives on the east? Well, where the Cherokees, they hid in the mountains, and they have a good outdoor drama that talks about that. So if you ever go to Cherokee, North Carolina, you will see that. For my tribe, we in our area a lot of swamps. So a lot of our people lived in swamps, and there's some people that did leave, but there was people that some left and then they was able to get away and come back. But majority of our people lived in swamps, learned how to did not speak the language. So learning how to live in a dominant society and forgetting about being native was going to kill you. And so that was a big thing in all tribes, learning to forget that part of their lives. Even in the territory, some land that I own right on 74 through my tribal territory goes straight to Charlotte, goes straight to DC, it goes straight to Cherokee and through out west. You take Highway 74, where well, back in the day, and even right now, that highway is called Andrew Jackson. The land that is tribal territory was called Andrew Jackson, but our tribe and the Commission of Indian Affairs of North Carolina fought so hard for that name to be changed. So now when you go through our tribal territory, that name is changed to the American Indian Highway. So again, now we're dealing with the Western tribes and the wars with that. In 1862, there was a Dakota War. And the president, back in those days, a native could not bear arms. Therefore, it was hard to hunt. People starving in the Dakota areas, which is the Sioux tribe. And so in 1862, you had this situation that took place. If you want to show this video.
They were shackled and chained together. They had hoods on them. The women began wailing and weeping. One of the prisoners in a loud voice said, "Namach umpo metakwepi, hear me, my people. Today is not a day of defeat. It is a day of victory. For we have made our peace with our Creator and now go to be with Him forever. Remember this day to tell our children so they can tell their children that we are people who died a noble death. Do not mourn for us. Rejoice with us. It's a good day to God." Then he lifted up his voice and began singing.
This, make sure I'm not on mute. This hanging took place the day after Christmas. And this single drop was the largest mass execution in the United States history. Now we're in phase 5 of the historical trauma, the boarding school phase. This took place, removing natives again and put them into boarding school. And the goal was to kill the Indian and save the man. And if you want to show this video.
So intense that the elders instructed us to make a 7,000-mile journey across the United States. We traveled to current and former boarding schools to gather these stories from the people who attended when they were children. We recorded the stories of what happened to them. Here are their stories.
The stories that we heard on this journey from these elders were so unbelievable. Some of the elders, they even had a very difficult time even talking about what went on there. Many of the elders who told us stories of what happened to them was the first time that they ever told a story to anybody, even their children, their spouses. No one had known the experiences that they had in these boarding schools as children.
Said he liked this boarding school. Well, I, for one, hated the damn place. And I can start out with, I don't know if anybody here remembers their life when they were 6 years old. I do. It was right here at this boarding school that, I'm going to mention that name, Mr. Care. Boy, did I hate that son of a bitch. I mean, really, really hate. And I didn't know I was supposed to ask this man for permission.
I'd come back that evening and, then he'd knock the hell right out of me. There's a window there. He'd shut it, make sure nobody saw it. And when I got back, damn, he just whipped me all over my damn body. I mean, he knocked the hell right out of me. And neither one of us knew how to cry because we weren't supposed to cry.
It is said, "The truth shall set you free." The stories we heard on the journey of the beatings of the children for speaking their language, the violence to the children, the punishment system, the sexual abuse is directly tied to our current day community issues of alcoholism, drug abuse, violence, and sexual abuse. This is called intergenerational trauma.
Because this happened over 100 years ago, 130 years ago, and that historical trauma passes on from generation to generation. And we see many angry young people and others who don't even know why they're angry. And if we look back, we're treating the symptoms, but if we look back, we'll find the root causes go back to this time. When genocide took place.
I remember me and my friend, another girl, well, she was my relative from Cheyenne River. We were in the dormitory and we went out the back door, and it was the roof, and we didn't realize it was the roof, but we went back in, and that night we had, they called our names. They called a whole bunch of little girls' names, and so we all got in line, and the sister opened this door, and she took one little girl in there, and pretty soon that little girl was just crying, and she came out, and then the next one, and we realized they were getting whipped in there. And when it was my turn to go up there, and I went in there, and that sister told me that I was on the roof and I was somewhere I weren't supposed to be, and so they pulled our pants down, and that was our first whipping. The first day I got there, the first night, that was my experience with the first day at boarding school.
I'm the last of the family of 9 children. My oldest brother went to boarding school, never came back. Only his body was brought back. I had 2 other sisters, later years, lost their lives to alcoholism. I come from a family of alcoholism.
And yes, there was sexual abuse in our time. Yes, there was. But we weren't allowed to talk about it. We were given cod liver oil by the tablespoonful for talking Indian. We were slapped with yardsticks for talking Indian, for whispering, or wanting to go to church. We couldn't have a best friend. They'd break us apart. Like someone said, they got separated because they were too close. And that's the way it was. And that's the way it was in boarding school.
As soon as we got to the school, they cut our braids off. They didn't even have the courtesy to unbraid it. They just chopped them off.
But with the Lakotas, if you cut their hair, it means mourning for them. And for these children, they had to have their hair cut. And it is said that they cried throughout the night over this. That was very smart on the teachers and Pratt in the beginning of the brainwashing that they did to these children. Their whole thing was to totally take away their identity. They changed their names from their native names, which For all of us, it symbolizes our heritage, our pride, our accomplishments. It says who we are and where we stand. And they decided to take all the Indian names away and give them common American names, to take their self-worth and their self-identity away from them. That was just part of the brainwashing that they did to the children here, besides cutting their hair. When the children were caught speaking their language, they were brutally beaten. There's a house over here that they call the Ashburn House. And there's the Ashburn House and the Pratt House. One of those houses used to be the discipline house, and the other one was their mess hall. The stuff that they did to these children was unbelievable. They sexually abused them, they mentally abused them, and they physically abused them. And even better, they would get the native kids to determine what punishment they would get. And if the children did not give a good enough punishment, then the ones that were asked to give the punishment also got punished. And the punishments were quite immense. And to have a house specifically just for that, you could just imagine what happened in there.
My grandfather's in 1898. I have pictures of him at the Fort Taunton boarding school in North.
So, and I want to emphasize this, this is definitely not an Eastern tribe versus a Western tribe. All natives, East and West natives, went to boarding school. We, our tribal members went to that same boarding school. We also, in North Carolina, we also had a Mormons boarding school that a lot of the natives went, and Mr. George and Nicole and John, they was able to meet a descendants from that boarding school, Eric, who's a hoop dancer. Some situations in that situation, when they went away, the goal for the United States for them not to come back. And if they knew if they never came back, that would destroy a tribe. So without children, you don't have a nation. If you can, let me start, you can start this last document.
A white man. Yet, through the agencies of the government, they are being rapidly brought from their state of comparative savagery and barbarism to one of civilization.
John Brown, hey, there, John Brown, hey, there, John Brown,
The Indian Adoption Project began in 1958 as a government effort to remove Native children from their families and place them in white homes.
For decades, Indian parents and their children have been at the mercy of abusive action of local, state, federal, and private agency officials.
Between 25 and 35% of all American Indian children are removed from their families.
Welfare agencies seem to have operated on the premise that most Indian children would really be better off growing up non-Indian. It has been called by some cultural genocide.
We have the Navajo as we find him in the desert. Few of these boys and girls have ever seen.
Stop that. So what came of that, and even with the boarding school and to this situation with the Indian Adoption Project, you can say this is not something that happened 200-300 years ago. This is currently situations that happened within my parents' time period, and what came out of that was the Indian Child Welfare Act. This is pretty much how I got to Massachusetts. I helped develop the Indian Child Welfare Act in the Mashpee Wampanoag tribe on the Cape, and the act states that a child cannot be placed in custody of a non-native. That must be the last result in it. I helped change laws with Massachusetts that allow that all Native people in the Massachusetts tribe to be under kinship, so they won't have to go through the hoops and hollers of being a foster parent. And how I got involved when I came back from Rutgers University after 9/11, after that trauma situation, and came back from 9/11 and went home, I realized that half of the children that was in custody of the state was all from my tribe, and because we was federal recognized with no federal benefits, this law did not apply to us. And so what do we today's time? So now we're dealing with another, I call this is a phase 6. This is I call it the Second Indian Removal Act. A lot of people don't know this is the Indian Relocation Act of 1956. What was taking place during this time period is World War II ended. The government could not afford to take care of natives as well as build Europe and Germany and everything was going on overseas. So they made an idea to say, hey, let's take them away from the reservation. Let's move them away from their people and place them in, and hopefully this will work out, that that the genocide would take place. So they was removed from their territory, moved to the urban areas such as New York, LA, Baltimore, Detroit, Indiana. So many different cities had these tribal relocation. And what came out of this tribal relocation was pan-Indian, meaning that you no longer would say, oh, she's Navajo, he's Lakota, Lumbee, Cherokee. It just became you're just Indian. It created the Indian ghettos in the city. But again, we still fight the fight. What came out of that? Today, 71% of Native people live in urban areas. I consider myself an urban Indian who is away from my tribal territory. In this process of this relocation, once again, Native people got together because you can't do burning ceremonies on concrete, as New Yorkers would call New York concrete jungle. So they developed organizations. So we got Metroline and Native American American Association, which is in Charlotte, North Carolina. And go back a little bit. Just a personal history. My family, my mother went to Charlotte. I had an uncle who Baltimore. I had another uncle who went to Detroit, and they never came back. These people just majority would never came back. They was just stuck in that urban life. You had a North American Indian Center of Boston, helped building Boston, natives building Boston. So you had all these natives moving to these urban areas and therefore building these urban organizations in San Diego, LA, and then right here we have the Rhode Island Indian Council. And this is who I used to work for prior to coming to Nonotuck. And then we have this right down here. You see the Urban Indian Health Program. That's the same program that was sterilizing Native women. Now these urban programs, early Indian health programs, are ruled and run by these urban organizations. This is the limbic system of the brain. I always compare this like a movie theater, developing a movie. And so you have all these different parts of the brain that takes memories and how those memories are developed and looked upon in our body. And so this part of the brain, and give you an example of the fight, freeze. You're on that threat mode. That threat mode gives it a feeling stuck, where now you have like a little brain fog. But this is a part of the brain that has been developed through the historical trauma, which again, the type 2 diabetes, we have the highest of, you name it, there is a highest. Our suicide rate is 91% greater than the general United States population. We have the highest suicide rate among any racial ethnic group. It is the eighth leading cause of death among American Indians and Alaskan natives. It's the second leading cause of death among American Indian youth. And I say, I can go to many examples of suicide, but just recently, my friend was um was looking for her son, woke up, he wasn't there, and they went into the woods, and they found him hanging from a tree. What's happening between 1999 and 2018, suicide rate has increased in women 139%, and among American Indian men, 71%. And I know a lot of people say, well, what's going on? Why we're almost in 2026. We're stuck in 2018 because it's so hard to get data among natives because of the 1%, 1.1 of the American population. And I do want to repeat that, 1.1 of American population. And I want to jump right into the mascot and show you why this situation needs to be removed from any games or any school system. Again, going back, sorry to have to go back in the past again. Massachusetts was selling skinned skulls for $60, 150 pounds for a scalp. My head would have been worth 130. The federal degree in 1814 offered $50 to $100 for a red skin. And back when they did that draw with the Dakota, we called it Dakota 38. When that had before that happened, a red skin cost $25. After they killed those individuals in the Dakota, that skull went up to $200. What has happened today based on mascots, it has lowered the self-esteem among Native people. Studies has shown that mascot increases the rate of depression and suicide among our youth. Now, let's remember that just waking up, being born, Native youth, the second leading cause of death is suicide. Now, if you add the variable of mascot, that only increases. And I can just give you a personal example of myself going to, I was, in Upper Bound where you go to college early in the summer, and we went to the Braves game in Georgia. And I never in my life once seen this in my life where people are dressed in war paint, headdress, things that we would thought was so ritual to us, and they was just making fun of it. And I just remember myself just acting up, just trying to shut it down while everybody else had their head down and just not saying anything. But that's something I would never forget. And think I'm just thankful that the Washington Redskins has changed their names. And even though there are some elders, and this is called harm reduction, historical trauma response is when you have elder people loving the Washington Redskins and loving that. And it's because that's all they saw growing up of their people on TV was a football game about the Redskins. So what are we going on today? Again, victimization. Native American and Alaska Native rate of murder, rape, and violent crimes are higher than the national average. 2020 homicide was in the top 10 leading cause of death for Native females, 1 to 45. It got so bad in my territory that Department of Justice, and these are some ladies back home, these three ladies right here was missing, and they found their bodies deceased. In other areas of tribal territories, and again, this is not a east west, this is a whole national Native American issue. It's sometimes up to 10 times of this victimization, and it's because of the laws within tribal territory. Because once you're in a when you go to a reservation, you're like in a different country. You have different laws. It's sovereignty, and when a non-native breaks the laws in sovereignty territory, they do not have to obey by tribal laws. Only those laws are for tribal members. So they can break laws, and tribal leaders really can't do anything about it. Only time the federal government gets involved with tribal victimization is murder. And then that's when the federal government can get involved in tribal territories. This is just showing more of what we're dealing with in today. Again, we only represent 1.1. We don't have another continent or another country to see more of our people. This is it. And every year I feel like when I see, I remember when it was 2 point something and 1.7, now me seeing it 1.1 is just a fear. So the homicide of among men is the highest among anybody, any racial group out there. Deaths related to alcohol is 11.7 compared to the United States population is 3.3. Premature heart attacks at 23%. The leading cause of death from ages 1 through 44 is unintentional injuries, 2.5, the national average. And again, give you another story on that. In my territory, everybody has a Harley. Everybody drives a Harley. I rode many bikes myself. And so people die. People will, again, let's not forget about that foggy of the brain, not making the right decisions. So people are just, they're run into transfer trucks. I know people's heads got cut off because of riding bikes. And even though a lot of the prevention, a lot of grants was written to prevent the deaths, 51% decrease in this. But however, even though 51% was a decrease in this issue, still we are still 2.5 times the national average. Again, adults 45 to 64 with the heart disease, cancer. And again, we have the highest. 1 out of 6 adults will be diagnosed with diabetes. Some, depending on what area you're in of the United States, it can go up to 60% of their people being diagnosed with diabetes. Always says what happened in your neck of the woods. So this is some data right here in the Boston, the urban Indian health data. It shows that 32.5% of Native people are on SNAP compared to 6.7 of the of whites. This talks about poverty. Just 17.7% of the children, 23.3 of Native families are in poverty of this area of Massachusetts. Let's look at it in a national sense. You know, sometimes we feel like it's just a one area. No, Native Americans are 25.4% of them are living in poverty compared to Black Americans living in 20.8, Hispanic 17.6, and white population at 8.1. And this is during the same period of time. Again, it's so hard to get data among Native people because of the 1.1. This is a big thing to me. A bachelor's degree higher. Native people, there's only 15% in this United States of America that has a highest a bachelor's degree or higher. Hispanic 16.4, African 21.6, and white 33.5. So of a need for Native people, because when you're dealing with Indian health service, when you're dealing with therapeutic service for Native people, most likely they won't attend. They prefer to talk to their own people. And now tribal governments are developing therapeutic programs that consists of their traditional ways, like the talking circle. Oh, I think I know I speed through that, and I'm so sorry, but just Q&A, some questions. There's some pictures of tribal members, family members. I'm going to stop sharing. And if there's any questions, I know that was a lot, and I know my accent probably didn't help the case, but if anybody has any questions or concerns, let's talk about that icebreaker. Did we have any data on that?
It was 80% yes, 20% no.
Boy, and all y'all was wrong. So he's Italian. I mean, I did this train with some third graders. I had a bunch of pictures, and of course they didn't get it right, or their teachers. And so no, he's Italian, and an actor. So that lets you know. But
I
so
knew it
much
was a
going
trick
on.
question, Rhonda.
Yes, it was a trick, definitely a trick question. Definitely a trick question. But any questions or concerns?
Yeah, I do have a couple of questions, but
Okay.
before that, yeah, just wanted to thanks for the great information. I definitely learned a lot more than I was before this. Um, Something that kind of pointed out to me in one of the videos was the video where the kids were singing, and I
Mm-hmm.
noticed all their hairs were all cut the same. Was there a specific reason to that?
Well, they knew that our hair represents our strength. We won't cut our hair unless somebody dies. So what
Right.
you're doing is destroying the dignity and the strength of kids at a very young age. Like the lady said, they don't even unbraid it. They're just chopping it all off. And so they're trying their best to make sure that these native kids learn during that day the white society, the white way, the United States way, and having long hairs and braids. They always says that you're looking savage, so that's what took place, is cutting the hair.
Okay. Yeah, I just thought it was interesting in a way because it was like identical, like all the kids had the same haircut, which was kind of similar to what happened during the Cambodian genocide, where people were forced, specifically like younger women and children, and just women in general at the time, they were given like the same haircut, same
Yep.
same uniform, same haircut. So I thought that was interesting.
It's very similar. It's very similar ways of what happened.
Mm. And I have another question. So with the boarding schools victims, right? Obviously, based on the videos, I don't think they have received any sort of justice until now. Has there any been anything that was given to them in terms of, a recognition of
What?
what happened?
No recognition. Only thing they was able to get back was dead bodies that they was waiting for. So recently they was able to get their bodies back. But what has happened in Canada, Canada has acknowledged it and asked for forgiveness. And that's part of healing process, to have that acknowledgement. The United States has not done that as of yet. And it was not an East versus West. I mean, I have friends in Massachusetts, and their grandmother was at this same school. You can go to the website, Carlisle's boarding school, and type in names. So I type in my tribal all the last name Locklear's is a big last name. Again, I don't know if you know this, but Heather Locklear, if you ever Google Heather Locklear, the actress, she's descendants from the Lumbees. But if you go into the boarding school's website, you can type in names, and it'll show you natives from all over that went to those boarding schools.
Okay.
And the goal was for them not to come back, and some didn't.
Mhm. Yeah, I think you kind of answered my third question, which was about the people that went missing, the children that went missing. Um, did they ever discover them? I mean, you said that they were allowed to family to kind of pick up the body or remainings, if anything. Was that part of the, missing victims at the boarding
No,
school?
no,
No.
missing murder indigents is a totally different issue. It's remove. It's like, again, thinking that fogness of a human being's brain, even a female going to a club, having a good time, talking to somebody, and maybe having a nightcap where they're missing in action, or anything that our family, maybe, or your family, saying, be careful, don't do this, don't do that. And not saying that everybody was in that situation. I mean, even the pipelines, like I said, you go to a reservation, the laws are different, and it doesn't protect native people like it should on their reservations. And people are is the highest than any other race. And again, we're talking about 1.1 of American population, dealing with the highest epidemic of missing murder digits. um, I mean, there was a lady, a girl I used to follow, for my husband's tribe. Beautiful girl. I used to watch her on Facebook. She wanted to be a singer. And I used to say to myself, oh, I hope she don't, just too much, social media. We've been educated on this social media thing. And sure enough, a couple years ago, somebody promised her the world. She got missing in action. They found her phone in New Bedford. They found her body in Georgia, and she was pregnant. Not Georgia, I'm sorry. She found her body in Florida. FBI got involved, and that's where they found her body. She was pregnant. So it was 2 deaths. And that was very hard in the tribe.
Okay. Thank you.
But yeah, today Indians, I mean, I always say, pray for us, Lord. Let us, 1.1. We're not doing too well. Not doing too well. Oh, Jamie.
That was wonderful, Rhonda. Thank you.
Oh, thank you.
The boarding schools, I don't know if I don't think it was in the timeline, but when did those schools stop officially being, in
The killer
that being
schools?
in
Well,
the killing schools in practice?
there's some schools still exist. That Carlisle school shut down maybe a couple decades ago, not too far, not too long, because look at the elders that was mourning this. So this is stuff that has effect. So they go to these boarding schools. This is the first time they're getting beat. They don't get whippings at home. It was so this is all new. Hair's being cut off, and then you're learning these beaten ways. So if you survive boarding school and then you go home, what are you doing? You're beating your kids. You don't have time to say I love you. If you go on to watch this, there's say that my father never said I love, because reservation, you don't have time. You're surviving. You don't have time to say, oh, baby girl, how's your day? None of that. Nobody has time for it. And so it was just trying to survive versus being the best parent. And the
I know that
addiction that I'm sorry.
No, thank you. I'm sorry. There was a parallel that, was our institutionalized schools, here, and the people that, we work with, there were years where they all had to be closed by, and I remember that also being true for some of the schools, but then not all of them, because some are on reservation property. Some are not, so yeah, I think it's scary and interesting that those schools, some of them are still in practice, or that this was still going on just not too long ago. But thank you.
Miss Angela.
Hi, Rhonda. I really appreciate the presentation. It's always, I always like talking to you. But when you talked about the legislation you were involved with and then that it didn't work the way that you thought it was gonna, is that in practice that Native American children don't have to go with Native American families still? Is that still today
See,
that kind of a high?
yeah, I mean, when I
Yeah.
came to Mashpee, I think that we had about 2 cases that we had children going into a white family being adopted. And so because of that family was so tight, they already got close to them. I literally had to write contracts to say that you will come to the powwow, you would do ceremonies, you would do
Right.
language classes. But the sad thing about my tribe, in 1956, when we became federal recognized by the federal government, we said to the because we had a university in 1889 to educate natives in higher education. So we said to the federal government, oh, don't just recognize us as Native American. Just recognize us. We don't need your benefits. And so now we know that now we don't get those benefits of the any child welfare. And so 50% even to the day or Lumbee children in custody of the state. And you don't want, and the foster parents, it's hard to get foster parents because the Lumbee parents don't want to deal with the government. And so before I came to Massachusetts, I had the first any child welfare agency called Red Path Child and Family. So that helped to not deal with the government. They was able to go straight through me, become a foster parent through my education, and be able to have native foster children.
Really? It's
I
a
don't know if that
catch-22,
answered.
right? Yeah, you try, no, well, it does. I mean, it's a catch-22. You could take the help from the federal government and be lost in it, or don't take help and still be lost because you are, a marginalized set of people, right? Without, yeah, it's not okay.
Yeah.
Well,
I know.
Go ahead.
No, I know when I first came to Mashpee up here, and they just got their recognized in 2007. So the government, the Massachusetts government didn't know what was going on. The judges, so I didn't have to. I was the lawyer of the tribe, and so I
Wow.
would just go in the court and say, no, we're not having this. And so we had to educate judges that you do not have the law. We have the law. You
I
can't
even know.
supersede us. And so
Wow.
fighting the fight, I mean, it takes a different human being to know how to walk traditionally and this dominant way of society. It's so hard. It's so tough. And a lot of people can't do it. A lot of natives can't do it, to walk in a moccasin and a shoe at the same time.
Well, I think that's, that's a great thing to take away, right? I mean, because we're all trying to be reflective, walk in somebody else's shoes and understand what they go through so that we can support them however works best for them, not maybe for us, right? That's amazing. Yeah, appreciate that.
I do want to thank Nonotuck. I remember when I went to Kapala. That was almost like I was always trying to heal on my own. I knew healing was important, but that I thought, was the beginning of my healing for myself when I started meditating. And I thank Nonotuck for that. Yeah, because each day, it can be rough sometimes. So I thank Nonotuck for that.
I appreciate the education today. Thanks, Rhonda, a lot. Yeah.
Rhonda, we have some thanks from people in the chat, and there's also a question. What are other ways you think Native Americans can heal from the trauma?
Well, just acknowledging it's so hard to heal when you got people saying it didn't happen. Get over it. It's 2025, 26. Get over it. And native people die faster than any other people, so it's so hard to say that, because like the woman said, it's like a band-aid. We're not really getting to the root source of it. But I always told, I was talking to my preacher the other day, but if we can start at a very, very young age of what we're talking about, PBS, positive behavior support, being positive, taking time to know that we're safe, and get it out of your mind that there's no fight today. We're not going to fight. There's no battle today. I remember 9/11 when I was in New York City. How can you heal and it's always happening? So I was in 9/11. I seen it. I saw the smelling of burned flesh. I saw people looking at me saying, "What country are you from?" When they started talking like that to me, I knew I had to go back to North Carolina because I'm like, I mean, it was bad. I was like, this is my country. What are you talking about? But yeah, how can you heal when it continues on and on and on? But like Kapalo, like you learn taking a minute to sit back and meditate and be quiet. Going back to cultures, learning your language. Language was something that we was forbidden to speak. I would go to and there's friends who has met my grandma, was forbidden to speak a native language. My grandmother, I would go to ceremonies. My mother would take us to different tribes throughout the country. But when I came to see my grandmother, she didn't want to talk about it. It was all about survival. This was not going to help nobody speaking a language and doing traditional things. It was always about how's your grades. It was nothing about being traditional. So it's just going back to your roots. And I know a lot of people, and I get it all the time, they want to be natives. And I always say, if you're not, it's all about, it's rough in the beginning. This is who we are. I didn't have a choice to say, oh, I think I'm gonna be white today. Oh, I think I'm gonna be black today. I was a native every day. I didn't have a choice of what race I was gonna be in. So acknowledgement is so important to going back. That's why it's so important for me to go back home. And I mean, I know my husband's Wampanoag and tribe, but he's not from my nation. And we have to know that each tribe is a different nation who speaks different language and does things different. And I live with a Wampanoag, but he's not from my nation. And it's so important for me to have to go back and get some lumbinas sometimes. But it's so important for us to have allies. I'm a big ally person. If you're not, I know I hear it so many times how somebody's great 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 is Cherokee or Native. Be an ally. We need allies out there. Tell your children about us. Statistics says they're going to be the president of the United States. It's not going to be my people. They're going to be senators. It's not going to be my people. They're going to be there to change the laws for Native people.
All right. Well, unless we have any more questions, I think we can wrap up here.
I think that's
Um,
cool in the chat. Fanta asked, is there any festival or celebration in Massachusetts that is open to non-natives?
Yes, there's so many, so many. It starts in 4th of July, which is Mashpee Wampum. My husband's truck must go if you ever go, because they have a fireball on a Saturday. So 4th of July weekend, the powwow is Friday, Saturday, Sunday. That Saturday night, please, that's the time to go because they have a ceremony, and by tribal rights, they can't record ceremonies, but it's called the fireball. And they put, because they used to be whalers, so they used to back in the day will put this ball wrapped in chicken wire in gas, and on Saturday they're lighted up, and they used to play this game if somebody had beef with each other, or a healing game. So these guys will still play this game with just a barely no clothes on, butt skins, and the goalies are on fire and the ball's on fire, and this game is played at night, and they throw the ball, it smacks you in the face, so you get burned and cut at the same time. If you love ceremonies, you'll love that. So that's the 4th of July weekend. The the second week of September, the Wampanoags in Martha's Vineyard has their powwows. But that's pretty much the major. And then the university, Harvard University has their powwows, has a powwow because, Harvard School was designed for Native Americans. I don't know if you knew that, but they have their powwow also, the universities. But Pequot, that's not far from us. They have their powwow the last weekend of August. That's a good powwow too. But Mashpee Wampanoags right here on the Cape, amazing.
Another question in the chat, Rhonda, is what specific steps can people take to move beyond awareness and into meaningful support?
Again, be our allies, contact your senators. Really, I hate to be a politician today, but you just be our allies. Know that we're not doing well. I'm doing well because how I was raised was, I'm barely, sometimes I have my own issues, and I want to apologize if I ever been short with somebody. But it's rough out there. It's rough. I don't even, sometimes the phone calls, I don't know what phone call am I gonna get. Is this gonna be somebody dying on me? Um, but allies, we need so much of them. They'll just educate your children about us. Again, they're the future leaders. It's not going to be us, the native. We want us to be leaders, but statistics shows it's going to be them that's going to be your people, that's going to be the senators and the presidents and the House of Representatives. So we're still around on the East. We're still around in Indian country, just not doing good.
Rona, I just have one last question, and this is in regards to the picture of Susan Boyle. What does it mean to be a trans Native American? Is it really a thing? Because I just Google her and then, it's the same picture pops up and that she basically, you know, um, is now a trans Native American.
Two-spirit, trans Native American.
Okay.
No, and who is this? I'm sorry.
Susan Boy, the picture you have on the presentation, the woman with the let me show you this lady right here.
Oh, you would have lost again. Okay, you don't have to show that no more.
No, I know who she is.
I played this for those third graders, and
Yeah.
I think they said I think they got it right. This person's not Native.
No, I know.
This
I
is
know who she is. That's why it was interesting to me. You had it listed there, and then, and I just Google it, like, does she even have any native I
She won
guess
America's Got Talent, didn't she?
Yeah.
Wasn't she on the America's Got Talent? Yeah, I remember her.
long time ago.
I think
but
she
this
was,
is-
though, a picture of someone dressed up, right? In
Right,
like
she had
when you
that
were saying,
outfit on.
Rhonda, that you go to the games, right? And everybody was dressed up, but it's not
Yeah.
there. Yeah.
It's fine. That's right. Yeah.
So
but they
during
recognize her as a
Halloween,
star.
we're always educating people. Okay, it's Halloween. Please put your Pocahontas clothes up. Do not, it's just this my regalia, my wampum. This is not a costume. This is who we are. So it's just so disrespectful when we see people like that. Because back in the day, if we did that 56, we would have been. It wouldn't have been nice. 100 years ago, we would have been killed to wear headdresses. So now you
Sure.
think that's pretty for you to wear it when it was against the law for us to wear it a few years ago? So it's very disrespectful, and you see it in so many. If you ever go to Florida State game, like I can't even go to these games because it's so rough for me. Even in Bourne, right here on the Cape, there's Bourne Braves. I never went to that game until there was a tribal member who was playing baseball there for my tribe. And, I'm pro-native, Lord knows. So I went to that game praying that they weren't going to be doing no chat or tomahawk, but they didn't do anything. So I was happy about that. But mascots are not a good situation for Native people, Native kids in general.
You're making me think, Rhonda, too, if maybe you don't have this today, but if we could sit down and maybe, you're saying how we could advocate and just be able to understand that movies like the Disney movies of Pocahontas and things that, are not the things you want to teach people with then, right? So if maybe we could create something that is something that you'd like to teach children with that does do it in a way that you feel is respectful, and so that you could make some recommendations, I think that would be helpful. Because I was shocked by it. I knew the story of Pocahontas kind of, but when you put it up on the screenshot, I was like, oh, that's, I just remember that. Yeah.
She was a baby, a little teenager going off to England. So there won't be a war between her people and England. They would.
She wasn't sinking any trees and being all happy and saving people for, which is not,
And then
how we grow
she
up,
had a
right?
boy. Yep, she had a little boy,
Different.
Thomas comes back to from England and fights against his own people. It's just that's again a historical trauma response. Yeah.
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 So informative, really, and thoughtfully informative. I really appreciate the conversation today.
Yes.
Thank you.
I'm gonna use my Kabbalah technique today.
That's good. I understand. We're keeping you over.
I know. Well, I thank everyone who came. I appreciate it. I appreciate each and every one of you. I appreciate Nonotuck for allowing us to educate.
All right. Well, thank you, everybody. This was really great. I really appreciate it. Thank you, Rhonda. Always appreciate it. You did a great job as usual. And I hope everyone has a great holiday.